The April 7th, 2022 meeting of the Lower Downtown Design Review Commission, and I'll call the meeting to order. As usual, before we begin the discussion, I'll review the options for public comments. If you're joining by computer or tablet or smartphone, you should select the hand raise option. And if you're calling in by phone, you need to send an email to landmark@denvergov.org with your name and phone number that you are using to call in and the project that you would like to discuss.
I haven't updated this slide, or actually you haven't updated your notes, or I didn't tell you to. If you're on phone, you can dial *9 and that will raise your hand and we will know that you're here to speak on a project. So sorry about that, Jane.
No worries. So, okay, perfect. So now I'd like to ask each commissioner to provide their name and what position they serve on the commission. We will go in alphabetical order, but I will start. My name is Jane Chrysler. I'm the chair and the preservation architect. And next is Tom.
Tom Solid, general contractor.
Mike.
Mike Coughlin, developer.
Andy.
Andy Duckett-Enke, preservation architect.
Fred.
Fred Glick, property owner.
Jim.
Yet.
Okay. But John.
John McIntyre, member at large.
And Heather.
Heather Vasquez Johnson, practicing architect.
Steve.
Steve Weil, business owner.
Hey, Jane, you're just a little bit quiet. I don't know if you're able to speak up a little bit. Just FYI.
Okay. I wonder if I was covering. Is that better?
That is, yeah.
Okay. I think I was covering them. Sorry. Okay. Next, we need to approve the meeting record from our last meeting, which was February 3rd, 2022. Does anyone have any comments or clarifications on the meeting record? Or if not, would like to offer a motion?
Jane, I move to approve the meeting record from February 3rd, 2022.
I'll second.
Great. Thank you, Heather, for the motion and Fred for the second. We will do a roll call vote. So going back to our list, Tom.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Andy.
Aye.
Fred.
Aye.
We don't have Jim yet, correct? John.
Aye.
Heather.
Aye.
And Steve.
Aye.
And Jane is also an aye. So the meeting record is approved. Thank you all. So next, yes, we move on to our consent agenda. We do have one item on our consent agenda, and that is 2022 COA 128 1730 Blake Street. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding this item or have a desire to pull it off of the consent agenda? So not hearing any objection, would somebody like to make a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I second it.
Thanks, Fred, for the motion and Steve for the second. So motion, oh, wait, I need to do a roll call, don't I? I do. Okay, so back to our list. Tom,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Andy,
Aye.
Fred,
aye,
John, John, do you have a vote?
Sorry, my mute wasn't working. Aye.
No worries. Heather,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
and Jane is also an aye. So the motion passes. This consent agenda is approved, and we have anybody participating who's in support or related to that project. Thank you for coming and congratulations on the approval. Okay, moving right along. Next, we have a few items on our design review agenda. So as a reminder for that process, the staff will make a presentation, which will be followed by questions by commissioners. The applicant will have up to 10 minutes to make a presentation, followed by questions by commissioners. At that point, members of the public are welcome to make public comment for up to 2 minutes each. And again, if you're joining by computer, tablet, or smartphone, you should select the hand raise option. And as we just learned, if you're on your phone, *9 will also raise your hand for you. And then, Jen, do they still have the option to email landmark@denvergov.org as well? It looks like.
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely.
Yeah, okay. And if you are sending the email, then again, please provide your name, your phone number, and the project that you would like to discuss. Following any public comment, staff can offer any clarifications as needed, and then the commission will go into our deliberations and vote. So the first item that we have on our design review agenda is 2022 COA 135-1745 Wazee Street. Hand it over to staff.
Great, thank you, Jane. So the proposal before you today is for a new projecting sign at 1745 Wazee Street. The site is shown outlined in red on this map. The new tenant, the Rio Grande, is proposing to move an existing wall sign from its current Blake Street location, which you can see at the bottom left corner, to this new location at the corner of 18th and Wazee Street on the building shown in the bottom left photo. The applicant is proposing to repurpose the existing wall sign to become a projecting sign. So here you can see the elevations for the 18th and Wazee Street sign. The applicant adjusted the bottom height of the sign to align with the transom windows on the first floor. And so the sign would not protrude too much above the first floor. The sign will be attached to the building through the mortar joints and not directly into the brick face, as noted on the bottom of the elevations. So here you can see details for the new sign. To the left is the proposed armature for how the sign will be attached to the building. The armature will hold the sign directly off the building a minimum of 6 inches. And on the right, you can see that the second side of the sign is being made to match the existing wall sign and just change it to a projecting sign. So it'll keep the neon illumination and design. So finally, these are just 2 examples of existing signs at other locations for this restaurant. As you can see, the sign design is the same, and this design is the brand for the restaurant. The sign is sculptural and 3-dimensional in nature, will be located at and immediately above the ground floor. The sign does exceed our maximum 12 square feet surface area of the design guidelines. However, this is a sign that is already partially fabricated and is being reused in this new location. Staff is supportive of the larger signage because it is in scale with the contributing structure and the surrounding context and is iconic in nature. And additionally, no other projecting signage will be used on the building as this is the only commercial tenant. Therefore, staff is recommending approval. That's it.
Sorry, I had to find my mute button. Thank you, Crystal. Are there any questions for Crystal by staff or by commission? Sorry, commissioners. I had one question, Crystal.
Sure.
Do you know how much larger this sign is beyond the 12 square feet?
Yeah, so it is 11 feet tall. The bottom grande kind of sticks out more than the rest, as you can see. But the applicants included on the sign page that it is 38.5 square feet. So it is much larger. I think as you can see, it's at the top right here. I think because the building's so tall and the surrounding context is also like 4 to 5 story buildings, that's why we found it appropriate here. But that's up to you guys, so.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from commissioners? Okay, then I would like to invite the applicant to unmute themselves and let you know that you have up to 10 minutes that you can choose to use all of or not to make a presentation. Please be sure to state your name and address for the record. And after you're finished presenting, we will ask any questions that we have of you.
Cindy, we had a list of people who were presenting but aren't here for this meeting, and Patrick has his hand up. Is Patrick part of your project team?
Cindy should be the speaker.
Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, this is Cindy with Freeman Signs. Patrick is the owner of the
Okay,
restaurant.
great. I'll move him over. Hold on a second before you start your, great. It takes us a minute for people to move. There we go. He's moved over. And yep, you're welcome to start whenever you're ready.
Okay, I believe Pat is on here with me now, and we just wanted to talk a little bit about this restaurant, that this sign is very iconic to them. It is part of their brand, and it would just add such character to that property. And I kind of lost my train of thought here. Pat, do you have anything else that you want to add?
Pausing the timer because Pat's on mute. So Patrick, you'll need to hit the mute button at the bottom of your screen when you're ready. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Patrick McGochran. I am the founder of Rio Grande Mexican Restaurants. I have been at this business since 1986. Perhaps I'll be eligible for some historic preservation at some point. I wanted to give you a brief history of our Rio Grande in lower downtown. In 1988, City Council approved a zoning ordinance creating the Lower Downtown Historic District. The intent to encourage historic preservation and to promote economic and social vitality in Denver's founding neighborhood. In 1999, we opened Rio Grande at 1525 Blake Street, our current location. For 22 years, Rio Grande has made significant contribution to the economic and social vitality of Lodo. I believe that also contributes to the historic preservation. We love our downtowns. In Fort Collins, we occupy the Oddfellows building built in 1902. That building was saved from a fire last summer in July, and we are in the process of rebuilding. In Boulder, we are at the corner of 11th and Walnut, building constructed in 1900. First a horse livery and then a car dealership. In 1920s, you could buy an REO speed wagon at that location. And so the name Rio has been on that building more than once. In Greeley, we're at the corner of 9th and 9th at the old Woolworth building. Back to Lodo. We will apparently survive the great pandemic, and it is because of the community and our brave people that have been able to, are willing to work through this. As Lodo has changed, so have the opportunities to remain relevant in today's world in downtown. So for this move, the move to 1745 Wazee is renewed and full commitment to lower downtown. We love it here. 1745 Wazee. This building was built in 1886. What a great structure. Many stories of its time. A hardware store in the 40s, a flooring store in the 30s and 40s, became Franklin Furniture in the 50s through the 90s. And in 1998, it was converted to the Franklin Lofts with a main floor restaurant. There's some history of vacancy during the late 20s to early 30s, I'm assuming due to the Great Depression. Again, vacancy on the main level since 2019 to now. And our intention is to bring life, warmth, and vibrancy back to this great structure. Our mission in our company, we provide sanctuary from the troubles of the world while serving you the best dang margaritas and Mexican food this side of the Rio Grande. This corner location gives us great opportunity to continue that sanctuary that we provide in Lodo. Regarding the sign, this sign has represented our brand promise to the community for nearly 20 years. It was actually originally a bladed sign, and we converted it to a wall sign for Blake Street. And so it would be restored back to a blade sign in this application. The designer is Evan Boyles of the Neon Jungle. I'll read a statement from Evan. First, as a collector and restorer of vintage American neon signs, and later for the past 30 years, as a designer and builder of new neon signs that hearken to the past, I have striven at all times to present signs that are or seem to be timeless landmarks, in keeping with both period and design of the vintage buildings they often adorn. I believe handmade neon signs evoke not only the past and the glory of American urban communication, they convey a sense of beauty and wonder that no other form of sign I've ever seen can rival, and transmit that feeling directly into the human soul. That's a great statement. And in closing, with the motion to approve from the Landmark Preservation Office in place, we humbly ask that the Lower Downtown Design Review Commission allow us to restore this sign to its original iconic intended purpose, to be a friendly beacon for all. I have a photo of it, a Photoshop image of it on the building, but I am not on video screen, so I won't be able to share that with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the information. And now, are there any questions for the owner by commissioners? Seeing any questions, then we appreciate, again, you being here. If we have any follow-up questions during our deliberations, we'll let you know. But otherwise, the commission will now go into deliberation on the project. Oh,
Public
sorry,
comment.
I missed the public comment. Sorry. Is there anyone from the public that would like to provide comment?
I don't see any hands raised, but just a reminder that if you'd like to provide public comment on this one, click the hand raise button at the bottom of your screen, or if you're on the phone, dial *9. No one is doing so. I think the folks are all here for the next item.
Okay, so we can begin our deliberations. And
May I start?
yes, please do, Steve.
I just want to make full disclosure that I knew Evan many years ago. He's a sign maker, but I haven't had any contact with him in many years either. I also I want to thank Rio Grande for both staying in Lodo and reactivating a prime location at 18th and Wazee. My view is that the sign has precedence and context because it has been on Blake Street, though it may be modified. I think essentially it's the same sign, and that gives it a certain weight that I agree with staff that it deserves to be approved. The other thing is, in terms of sustainability, I'm glad they're repurposing resources and not trashing them. So I'm in support.
Thank you, Steve. Are there other thoughts or commissioners?
May I just ask a question?
Yeah.
Is the existing Rio location in the district?
Yes, Crystal is nodding her head, yes.
Yes, it is.
Crystal.
Okay, thanks, Crystal.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. I think. Any other comments?
Jane, I'll kind of second what Steve started to say. I think I appreciate the intent to reuse the sign. I mean, obviously, it's already, while it's installed currently on the Blake, or was on the Blake building as a wall sign, not a blade sign. I think that is, it's already been approved in kind of the design. The design of the sign has already been approved to go on the building in that location, whether that was by staff or by commission. So, but I appreciate the kind of reuse of resources and materials. I think, from a best practices standpoint, that's always something that should be encouraged when it's appropriate, which I think that it is here. I think I agree with staff's feeling that because the building is relatively tall and large, that the sign, even though it is in excess of the square footage typically allowed, that it's appropriate and doesn't overwhelm the building. I'd also say that I feel like it's also appropriate to be a little bit larger and to go in excess of those size guidelines, because that is the only commercial tenant, only commercial sign that will be on the building. And if I'm interpreting the application correctly, it looks like it is the only kind of major sign for this tenant, and that the rest of their signage is limited to vinyl window graphics. So I think that helps as well. I think if they had several other signs that were illuminated or lit or kind of plastered on the building as wall signs, that it would be a little excessive. But because the rest of their signage is really scaled down and minimal, I think that helps justify a variance from the overall sign square footage that's allowed here. So I'm in agreement with staff and in support of this.
Great, thank you, Heather. And how about Fred next? See a couple minutes up.
I think Mike had his hand raised first, though.
Oh, I'm sorry.
To let him go first.
Okay, thanks, Fred. I agree with the conclusion of Heather and Steve, but I come at it way more narrowly, I think. I don't believe we've talked very much about, approving signage relative to the scale necessarily of the building it's on, unless to say it's way out of scale. But generally, I don't think we've had conversations about exceeding limits based on the size of the building that it's on. However, this is an existing sign in the district on a building already. I believe that it's obviously been approved in the past by staff or the commission. It's relocating an existing sign. And I think because of that, we can approve this and still be within our guidelines.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mike.
So I'll jump in and say that I'm widely in agreement with what's been said. It occurs to me two things, that as we periodically review our guidelines and consider changes and adjustments, that first of all, in terms of signage, it makes me question whether we ought to be exploring that question of contextual size, et cetera. And I guess I just kind of throw that out to staff for future consideration and whenever the next round is. And I know signage is a piece that has always troubled us greatly. But it does seem that we're seeing this, we're discussing and saying this makes sense. Perhaps we ought to consider reflecting that in our language in the future, that we consider the scale of the building and the scale of the sign in context to the building. And then the second piece for us maybe to be considering as we go forward as a principle within those guidelines, given the heightened discussion of sustainability since those guidelines were established, I think that the idea that they are reusing something and that principle is important to the board from what I've heard today. And it might be interesting for us to look at including that in the guidelines in the future. Obviously, historic preservation has that, but I think the discussion has shifted somewhat since that time. So I just put that out there for future consideration. Thanks.
Thanks, Fred. And John, looks like you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to second what Fred said there. I think that, considering that, and I think adding to that, this idea of singularity, because I think what's happening here with the scale of this sign and its sort of corner nature and the fact that it's the only one at the base, it's putting it into a much stronger relationship with the building itself. And I think considering that aspect of it as we get to the ideas of scale would also be important too. So otherwise, just completely in agreement with everybody else.
Thank you. I would just add to those comments that I think the fact that the sign meets the design guidelines in all other areas is helpful. And I think the biggest concern I had was, I think what we really are trying to avoid is having signage throughout the district that is wildly out of scale from one another, and that the scale of this sign and the size, although it is over the allowed square footage, it's not wildly over, and it's looks to be fairly close to the required size. Because I think had it been exponentially larger, I think there would have been more to discuss. So, any other comments from commissioners? Otherwise, would somebody like to make a motion?
I'd like to make the motion.
Go ahead,
I move to approve application 202 COA 135 for the projecting sign at 1745 Wazee Street for the requirements of the Lower Downtown Design Guidelines, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Fred. Any further comment or amendment? Otherwise, we will move to a roll call vote. Okay, so again, we'll start with Tom.
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Andy?
Aye.
Fred?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Heather?
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
Jane is also an aye, so the motion passes unanimously. And thank you again to the owner and to staff for bringing this to us. So we can now move on to our next design review agenda item, which is 2022 COA 143-1755 Blake Street, and I believe the streetscape portion.
So our next application is for Streetscape Alterations at 1755 Blake Street, which is a 5-story non-contributing building in the Lower Downtown Historic District. It was reviewed by the LDDRC in 2006, 2007. And I'm trying to go back to the previous slide, Jen, but it's not letting me.
Yeah, I'm having some serious issues with this too for some reason. There it goes. Is that it?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, that's the existing condition. So here in this photo, you can see the existing conditions. This is a corner building, and improvements to the streetscape will be made on both Blake Street and 18th Street. Currently, there are great tree planters on the sidewalk. However, the majority of those planters are empty and the trees are dead. So there is no greenery on this block, but it is a concrete sidewalk. So here are the proposed alterations. So the applicant is proposing to install new planter beds in the public right-of-way. The concrete planter beds will be about 20 feet long and then 5 feet 6 inches wide. They vary a little bit depending on the existing location of streetlights, utility poles, and things of that nature, as no alterations will be made to those. And then they will have a 6-inch concrete curb around the planter beds. They are intended to be planted with new trees in the middle, with shrubs and other foliage in the planter bed to provide some greenery around the area. There is one great tree planter that will remain, and that is due to its proximity to the existing building. However, that planter, that great tree planter, will be improved and enlarged. So it's this one right here. So that's an existing location, but they will enlarge that great tree sidewalk planter area. So let's see if I can change the slide. So here is kind of just an image of what that will look like in section. So that at least 7 feet 4 inches of clearance between the building facade and the raised concrete edge of the bed will be maintained. This building does have an entirely recessed first floor, so they are measuring it from the property line, but there is some additional clearance underneath the building. And then also between the curb and the planter bed, there will be about 2 feet, I think it's 6 inches of clearance between the concrete curb and the planter bed. And that will allow people accessing the parking meters and all that to not trample through the beds and have a area that they can walk through as well. So we did evaluate this with the design guidelines for the Lower Downtown Historic District, and the guidelines there recommend concrete, brick, and stone be used for sidewalk paving. So this will remain a concrete walkway, and the planter beds will also be concrete. And then we did also evaluate it with the streetscape guidelines. However, those guidelines are from 1991, And the proposed planting beds will comply with DOTI and the city forester requirements, which have evolved greatly since 1991. But generally speaking, it does comply with the guidelines. One existing tree will remain on the south side of the property. 8 of the existing dead tree and tree grates will be removed and replaced with planting beds. And the guidelines do encourage creating a planted area around the streetscape to create an inviting streetscape in the Lower Downtown Historic District. So staff are recommending approval of these alterations to the streetscape. And then I just have a few more slides to show you the proposed alterations. So here are the existing conditions. As you can see, there are no trees in the public right-of-way. And here are the proposed conditions with those proposed planter beds that will be added to the sidewalk.
Great, thank you, Brittany. Questions for staff by the commissioners? If doesn't look like we have any questions for staff, so I will go ahead and invite the applicant to unmute themselves. And
Yeah.
just as a
We haven't moved people over yet, Jane.
okay,
So the list we had, so Paul Stewart, are you the, or sorry, Stevens, are you the one who's speaking? I think, yeah, okay. I had your last name written down wrong. Sorry about that. And I'm moving you over at some point. I think you'll have to click a button to allow yourself to be moved over to speak. And Nate, I know you have your hand raised, but I had you on the list for the building alterations, not necessarily for the streetscape. I'm not sure. I'll move you over, but I wasn't fully sure. And Austin. Okay. Well, Paul's not moving, so I'm. You can unmute yourself whenever you're ready, but we won't be able to see you.
Okay, can you say?
Ooh.
and while the tech is getting sorted out, I'll just remind everyone, the applicant, that you have up to 10 minutes to present. And if you have any items that you would like to respond to from the staff presentation, please feel free to do so. And also please remember to provide your name and address.
Can you hear us now?
Just have a echo.
Yeah, you must have your like two things in the same room that are on.
All right, can you hear us now?
Still echo.
How's that?
Nope.
Still,
How's that?
Nope. Nope.
Should I dial in from myself? Yes. Can you hear us now?
Yes, and no echo.
perfect, thank you.
You've muted yourself.
Hello?
There we go. Now we can. you're muted again.
Oh, look, we're on the screen. Yeah. Hi, guys. Can you hear us now?
Now we can hear you. Yes. Yeah.
All right. We are using multiple devices here. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. Well, we kind of MacGyvered this thing together. Appreciate the opportunity to present today. We actually are on the agenda twice this morning about 1755 Blake, but I wanted to just make a quick introduction for those of you who are not familiar with Unico. Unico is a 65-year-old company, and we started investing in Denver in 2007 and started investing in lower downtown in 2012. We own historic buildings like St. Elmo, Elephant Corral, 1430 Wynkoop. And when 1755 Blake became available, we felt this was a chance to own a prominent corner in lower downtown, kind of right in the center, you know, the milk market right next to us in one direction, McGregor Square a block past that, and now the new RTD station redevelopment at 17th and Market. We felt that this was a prominent corner, but we felt like it probably hadn't reached its full potential. And we really pride ourselves on trying to be placemakers. I'm a former chair of the Downtown Denver Partnership Business Improvement District. My teammate, Don Moore, is a master's in urban planning, served on planning boards before. And this is a passion of ours personally and a passion of Unico's. So we have a chance to, we believe, add to the urban forest canopy through Denver's Urban Forest Initiative Plan. Thank you, Denver. And we feel like we can kind of enhance, without changing the inherent nature of the architecture, enhance that architecture to create a safer corner on 18th and Blake and kind of mitigate some of the negative impacts of 7-Eleven. So that's kind of a little introduction on the two projects we're going to discuss today. And Paul, if you want to jump in, I don't know if you can hear you. I left you 7 minutes and 48 seconds.
I don't think I'll need that, but sure. So we are working with the Downtown Denver Partnership, utilizing their Urban Forest Initiative grants to help offset the costs for these improvements. So we've been working closely with them as well as with City Forestry. They've already reviewed the plans. We've worked through everything, gotten initial approval from them. Pending outcome of this, we will go back to them and get final approval. So we have strived to meet all of Dottie's and Forestry's current standards in terms of the streetscape design, giving ourselves the clearance we need for pedestrian movement while also providing some buffer to the streets and bringing greenery and enhancing the street corridor, or the street corner, I should say. I guess the big piece that we're really trying to utilize or to take advantage of is the sidewalk's already in place. So we're trying to go in and do kind of with a scalpel, cut out concrete based on existing score joints, and make these planters fit that existing streetscape pattern. So we're not repouring any new concrete. We're reusing what's out there, filling in where we need to when we pull the trees off of the back of the curb. Currently, they're 4x4 tree grates attached to the back of the curb. So we're pulling them off, giving room for car door swings, parking meters, and everything else. So there will be some patchwork that has to be done, but mostly it's demo and putting plants in those tree openings. I don't really have much else. Don?
No, nothing more here. Thanks, Paul. And we're really excited to just create a better experience for the pedestrian on the street here with new trees and plants and kind of soften that corner. And and contribute to downtown Denver's urban canopy that we're trying to grow.
Great, thank you very much for the presentation. And I'll open it up to questions from commissioners for the applicant. I think we're getting a lot of thorough presentations this morning.
Nate, you have your hand raised. Do you have a question?
Okay, last call for questions for the applicant. Otherwise, is there anyone from the public who would like to make a comment on this project?
No hands raised, so no. And just FYI, Jim just joined the meeting. So Jim, you'll probably need to abstain for this vote, but because you didn't hear the presentation, but glad you were able to join us.
Okay, with no questions or public comment, we can go into deliberation. And thank you again to the applicant for the presentation. If we have any other questions that arise, we will let you know.
Thank you.
Are there any comments or thoughts commissioners would like to share?
Huge improvement. Looks great.
I think I agree with you. I wonder in time how well they maintain this and how easy it is to maintain and keep litter free and such. I hope they I suspect they would want to see that done on their during their ownership.
Yeah, there's no question about that. I think we look at this project as
Sorry, wait, they're in deliberation.
Oh,
So it's
sorry.
only commissioners. Yeah, we didn't move you because you're here for. Yeah, we didn't move you because we're here for the next item. But typically we would move you back over so we can hear you and then back.
If we will yes, address you directly if we're looking for a response, but I appreciate your willingness to to respond. So Tom, did you have any additional?
No, I from the application, it's something that has to happen positively to that storefront in that area. They described the situation with the vagrancy and such. And 7-Eleven draws a certain crowd. And it's active. They are probably creating a certain amount of trash and wear and tear because of that. But I think it's probably important to the owners to have that active on the street level. Yeah, it's great. I think it's all a good thing. I don't know about how that is maintained so much and whether that is an automatic sprinkler system that is goes into that. I know the city forestry has a watchful eye on this, is very particular about how things are done. So I'll trust in that.
Yeah, and I think as part of the staff report, it does indicate that the planting beds and trees will comply with DOTI and city forester requirements. Any other thoughts? Comments?
If it's not premature, I guess I would make a motion then.
Sure, go ahead.
All right, I move to approve application 2022 COA 143 for the streetscape modifications at 1755 Blake Street for the design guidelines for low downtown historic district policy 10.2 guidelines 10.2.2 and the design guidelines for lower downtown streetscape relating to landscape, character defining features for the lower downtown historic district, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
I'll
Thank you, Mike.
second.
And that was John with a second. Thank you, John. All right, let's do a roll call and start with Tom.
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Andy,
Aye.
Fred,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
Steve,
Aisle.
Jane is also an aye. So once again, the motion passes unanimously. And thank you to the applicant for.
You
Yes.
didn't call on Jim. He's here now. So
Oh, I thought we said he was abstaining.
yeah, but he actually has to abstain.
Oh, my fault.
You have to
I'm
call on
sorry.
him.
I'm sorry. Jim, what would you like to do?
I guess I'll abstain.
Thank you.
May I make
Thank
a
you,
comment, Jen?
Jennifer. Sure.
The comment on this is that this corner has been a very difficult one, and I think I credit the architects with responding in a manner that I think will greatly increase the corner's appeal. It has been a very difficult one.
Great. Thank you, Jim. So the motion does pass, not unanimously. We have one abstention, and thank you for keeping me on track, Jen. And thank you to the applicant for this portion. And I agree, I'm looking forward to these improvements. Okay, so on to our next item, which is a continuation of this property. So our next design review agenda item is 2022 COA 144 1755 Blake Street. This is the building portion. So I'll hand it over to staff.
So now you're looking at building alterations for the same building located at the corner of Blake and 18th Street. The applicant is proposing to alter the primary entrance to the building, which is on Blake Street and right here. And also make some minor alterations to the ground floor tenant space at the corner of Blake and 17th Street, and then alter the balcony design that is currently on the building facade on all elevations along the street front. So again, here are the existing conditions. The building entrance is along Blake Street. It is a recessed entry. It has some glass elements on the upper floors that help define that entrance, principally a projecting glass element with the address on the building. This building does have balconies, and those balconies do have a stone railing element that the applicant is proposing to remove. And then for the ground floor 7-Eleven tenant, there are some glass canopies that the applicant is also proposing to remove. I do have better photographs of that element in the next slide, so I'll just move on so you can see those better. So here is the primary entrance. The applicant is proposing to add a new entry feature to this facade, and it will involve demolition of this projecting glass element here. But the majority of the storefront will remain the same. It will be an additive element as opposed to a subtractive element. The applicant is also proposing to remove these glass canopies that hang down below the 7-Eleven tenant. And that glass canopy element ties into the existing primary storefront entrance. So you can see here that glass canopy kind of returns up the facade into the primary entrance. So all of those glass elements will be removed as part of this modification. So here is the proposed entry modifications. So the applicant is proposing to demolish the concrete sidewalk here and install a slate kind of welcome mat. That is recommended by the Streetscape design guidelines for lower downtown, is to create what the guidelines call a welcome mat. So that will be the modification to the ground floor. It will help bring visual prominence to that recessed entry. And then a blackened steel, I don't quite know what to call this, entry component will be added to the recessed entry, and this will project forward. It will not project forward of the building facade because the ground floor is recessed, but it will help define that entry and create separation between the primary building entrance and the tenant on the corner. So it will have composite wood on the interior faces of the entry element. So that's what you're seeing in the sections above, and then the outer edge will be the blackened steel element, which will be more visible adjacent to that tenant. It will be up against a wall on the south side of the building. The existing glass component with the address numerals is going to be removed as part of this entry element. So this will have new address numerals that are also blackened steel with halo illumination. And those letters are similar to other halo illuminated letters within the district. This project does have a comprehensive sign plan. That comprehensive sign plan is over 10 years old, but this does identify this location as the location for address numerals for this building. And then finally, in the ceiling of this entry element, there will be recessed lighting that is part of this to provide some warmth to that element. And you can see that in the middle roof plan on the bottom of your screen. I do have some drawings of what this will look like in rendering. So again, here is that proposed element. So the glass balcony that you see above is an existing element that will remain intact. And then that storefront is mostly not altered. The entrance will still be kind of on the side to the south. So mainly we're just looking at this entry element with the composite wood on the interior that is a blackened steel frame that will provide some separation between the tenant on the corner of 18th and Blake. This rendering is showing plantings in the adjacent to the storefront. However, that's not part of the project proposal. So even though you're seeing some plantings kind of in this welcome area and then below the storefront, that is not what Dig Studio is proposing as part of the Streetscape alterations, as you saw in the last application. So here are the proposed balcony alterations. So all of the balconies along Blake Street and 17th currently are a stone element. The applicant is proposing to remove those stone panels and instead install, 1.5 inch tempered glass that will be clear. The design guidelines do recommend that balconies be transparent element. Some of the design of the balconies maybe doesn't quite meet the design guidelines, but this is an existing component. So they're not altering the length and width of the balconies. They're just taking away that stone element and adding additional transparency. So the existing steel guardrails of the balconies will remain intact. So this section drawing is just showing how the stone will be removed from that existing balcony structure, and then the glass panel will be installed onto the structure. So again, this is the proposed conditions in which you can see those more transparent balcony railings, that new entry feature on Blake Street, and then again, some of those streetscape alterations. There are additional planters shown in this rendering, but as noted in the top left of this rendering, it does say that all the landscape is under Dig Studio, And as the LDDRC just reviewed, that application and those elements weren't shown, those are not part of this application today. So generally speaking, staff finds that these alterations are compatible with the design guidelines for Lower Downtown, which recommend that contemporary buildings maintain their expression of its time. We find that the modifications are limited and the building does remain an expression of its time, but the proposed alterations will be compatible with the surrounding historic context. We also find that the proposed alterations to the entry provide more visual prominence to that entrance, which is recommended by the design guidelines, particularly as this entrance is recessed 9 feet 10 inches from the property line. So that's a very deeply recessed entry. So adding additional visual prominence to that entrance is something that is recommended by the design guidelines for landmark structures and for Lower Downtown. And then, as I mentioned, the balconies will be clear glazing, which is also recommended by our design guidelines. And we feel that, generally speaking, the proposed address numerals do meet the comprehensive sign plan for this building. We have encouraged the applicant to revise that comprehensive sign plan, as this is a very old comprehensive sign plan, but we are recommending approval of this project proposal.
Thank you, Brittany. Do any commissioners have questions for staff? Not hearing any questions. I will go ahead and once again invite the applicant to unmute themselves, and just to let you know again, or remind you that you have up to 10 minutes to make a presentation, and feel free to respond to any comments in the report that was just provided. Again, we ask you to please state your name and your address for the record.
Okay, wonderful. Well, it says Austin Kane, but this is Nate Jenkins of Oz Architecture. I'm a principal here. Our address is 3003 Larimer, and here in Denver, of course, just up the street from the site. It's a pleasure to speak with you all today. I apologize for the technical difficulties. I was away from technology for a week, and I think it showed right out of the gate. So I'm coming in hot and annoying all of you with our microphone issues, but hopefully this project brings a brighter light to a corner that obviously has been touched with some unique challenges. This building, I remember moving to Denver in 2007 and seeing this building come out of the ground and being quite inspired by it. At the time, I think one of the biggest regrets I think that Unico and Oz has is that we haven't reached out to Tanya Salgado, who was the architect on this when she was with RNL, and obviously was once the chair of the board when it was a board and now the commission. So I hope you all know that we have been very sensitive to honoring the original intent for what this building once was, or what the building's concept was upon its approval by the board in its time in 5 and 6. I'm sorry, in 15 and 16. It opened in late 18, as you all know.
No, 8.
8, it was 8.
Yeah.
It was, I had it right. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, I've been here longer than that. So we've been really sensitive. I think the word alterations is the tough one, because I know it's part of the guidelines, but for us, we see these as enhancements. Light and surgical, I think, is the right approach, tactical in some respects, to very softly refine the original intent of this building. It was based on a 25-foot grid. We are not altering that grid in any way. There's a lot of registration and scale that we believe we are enhancing in some respects with the elimination of some of the opaque balconies. We're bringing more light in. We're allowing the occupants and the tenants within the building to look out in better ways than they are currently. And we're drawing the eye to the entry in a fashion that we think adds one moment of respite and warmth that the building could otherwise currently does not have. And so it's not the easiest way to find your way to the front door. And so we're trying to enhance that by providing this moment of warmth and the surround that we are believing is of context. And there isn't a material that we're providing or that is additive. It's simply some tweaking to the existing materiality of the building that we think honors its original intent. Providing an opportunity for identity moments that help visually clean up some of the ornamentation that is currently there, this canopy that is suspended below that, the transition between the first and second floor where 7-Eleven currently resides, felt like an obvious cue to take by eliminating its attachment to the entry portal itself, as we're calling it. And I guess the idea of bringing the landscape in and really allowing the interiors to come to the outside felt like a natural thing to do. It's a bit of a handshake gesture that we felt that the building could use. And that's about all we have. I don't know how much more to add. It's hopefully the soft touches are obvious and there's nothing to alarm. We are intentionally trying to be very sensitive to what is there today and simply tweak some of the opportunities that we see to make it a better pedestrian experience, which obviously Lodo is quite focused upon.
Great, thank you.
Thank you
for the presentation. And so I will open it up to questions by commissioners to the applicant.
I have a question, goes along with a statement to begin with. I do appreciate the architecture in this building, always have. And I think you've done well handling the changes. I think it opens up quite a bit. What happens with that looks like a wood wrap on the entry across from the ground floor up to the bottom of that balcony. Is that actually wood?
It's a composite material that will stand the test of time. You won't find, hailing from the Pacific Northwest, I would love to bring natural wood to the street, but for obvious reasons, that's not the material that we'll be using here. It will be, it'll have a much longer lifespan, and it is a composite so that it has the look of wood and the variegation of the wood, but is not prone to weather and vandalism or abuse as natural wood.
And I was wondering how well that'll hold up over time. There's a lot of traffic in and out of the building, down the walk. But you've thought about that. I understand.
And Brittany, maybe the other view does a better job of highlighting that and closer up. And to be fair, please know we've been, this was for mass form and context originally, this presentation, and ultimately Brittany was fair in suggesting that this gets pushed for both mass form and context and design details. We would have loved to have a little bit more time to enhance these renderings. Hopefully you can see what we've done for that. And this wood is intentionally variegated, is intentionally natural looking, but will not be a natural material.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. I don't hear any more questions from commissioners.
James, do you have a question?
Yes. Yeah, I have a question, James.
Oh, Jim, sorry, I didn't see.
Actually, a couple of them. First, I noticed this, I will agree that this is a very difficult building location, given the recent and current issues that have attached themselves to one of the tenants. And that's sad, but that's part of downtown. First of all, is parking, and I can't tell this from drawings, but is parking permitted or not permitted in the first lane adjacent to the curb? It doesn't look like it's possible, the one drawing.
Yes, parking, street side parking, metered parking is along the curb there.
Okay, there is parking along the curb. And
Correct.
is the drawing accurate then? Because it doesn't look like you have room to open the door of the car for the person sitting in the passenger seat or the back seat.
For those particular beds, they're 2 feet 8 inches back. So we did try and take into account door swing. And then we believe we can work around the meters. We altered one of the beds so that it fit better, but hopefully we're being thoughtful about that, Jen.
Okay, that's, you're aware of it, you've worked on it, that's good. Second question, I didn't see anything in there touching on the alley side, and are there any recesses or just, I live there, so I live downtown, so I know what you get into with those, but are there things we have to use?
Well, to be clear, we're not proposing any new recesses that don't currently exist and we're only touching one balcony on the alley, and that is with the railing itself and just changing the panels.
That answers that question. Good. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners with questions?
Jane, this may be a little bit more for Brittany, not necessarily for applicant. Are you requiring or have you seen a sample of the composite material that they're proposing for this entry piece?
I haven't seen a specific sample. However, the LDDRC has approved composite material wood in other locations, principally the Lodo Towers, which are located at like 17th and Market, which is also a non-contributing building. As this is a non-contributing building, I wasn't as concerned. And also, as previously stated, this was going to just be a mass form and scale review. However, when I reviewed the submittal, I felt that there was sufficient information to review the design details as well. You could conditionally require that material sample be submitted to me prior to final approval, though.
Okay. Thanks, Brittany.
We have a materials, I don't believe it's a colored materials board in our package that we sent to you, Brittany, but we're going to get the sample right now. It is, all I can do is tell you that it's a very high quality, not a cheap material at all, that is intentionally meant to be an extension of what's happening just within the space. Not that has an impact on your review, but we have the materials just entering the room for whatever it's worth. And then it's not, I wouldn't say it's bulletproof, but it's certainly something that is closer to a ceramic tile than it is natural wood.
Feels
Okay.
like wood.
I think that addresses what the point of my question. My concern is just that sometimes those composite wood materials tend to look kind of plasticky, and just wanting to avoid that.
Yeah, wonderful. Heather, I think your concern is valid. And frankly, these materials, depending on what price point it comes in, are suspect. This is not one of those. This would be considered the top of the line version of those materials. I don't know if you would like a close-up, but we have our camera. It's okay. Here you go. This is that. There's a really nice grain to it. It's thin, but from a faceting perspective, it's going to be beautiful and very intentional, and not be. In fact, the material itself commands a very ordered and predictable fastening pattern, so that hopefully you can see a real sophistication. This building commands a sophistication. Everything is timed and registered off of another move, and so the intention for us would be that this panelization would be complementary to that order and rhythm.
And it's,
a bigger view of this, I can stop sharing and we can spotlight the conference room that they're in, so he can hold it up and you guys can see. All right, let me do that. Nate, could you jump back up there? Stop sharing. And I'm gonna spotlight for everyone. Okay, there we go.
So there's two different types of this panel, two different makers. One is Parkplex and one is Prodema. And for the architects in the room, they'll understand what we're talking about from a price perspective. They are both very similar in their profile. These are two makers with very similar cross-sectional properties, but I can tell you it feels like ceramic tile in your hands and is not suspect to UV fading or light. So, hi everybody. My morning close-up. I guess for instances where it's applied downtown, I can't. This is what's on the Aspen Art Museum. Yeah, I mean it's what's been applied to the Aspen Art Museum, if that gives you any sense of quality.
Yeah,
And
That does.
this addresses all of my concerns. So you know, sometimes people use the term composite wood and they're talking about like a Trex, like a decking material. And I really just wanted to make sure that was not what we're heading towards, with especially the concerns about things looking plastically. So this has addressed my one concern. So thank you.
Heather, I made that joke earlier in the process and was roundly shouted back.
Can I just clarify, is this the exact same material as what's on the Aspen Museum?
it won't be the same finish. It won't be the same color, but it is the exact same manufacturer.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Back to the PowerPoint. Okay, any other questions for the applicants? I have lost some of my visual of the participants, so assuming we're good there.
Jane, if you click on view, you can get everybody back.
Okay, there they are. Awesome. Okay, I don't see any more raised hands, so we can move. Oh, public. I was forgetting the public. Apologies. Is there anyone who would like to provide public comment for this project? And I will acknowledge too that we did receive a comment letter from the Lodo district on this project that Jen sent to all the commissioners. I don't know if you needed to add anything to that, Jen, or not.
And I don't see any hands raised from the members of the public attending.
Okay, so without any further public comment other than our written letter, we can move into deliberation. Is there anyone who would like to start or offer any opinions on the proposal in front of us?
Jane, I can start. I think that this is great. I'll start with kind of taking out the panels for the balconies and replacing them with glass. I think that definitely meets the guidelines. You're introducing transparency that wasn't there. Fully in support of that. I think the way that we have kind of modified this, I'm going to call it entry portal, to help define the main entry into the space and subdivide it a little bit from the tenant, is a big improvement over what's there. I think that just experiences of walking by the building and going through it is that main entry and the storefront for the 7-Eleven tenant tend to blend in a little bit together, and you lose your way if you're unfamiliar with the building. So I think that this is a really nice way to define what that entry is, and introduce that and kind of funnel the visitors in through that main entry the way that it's supposed to be. So I'm in support of this project. They've addressed my concerns about the composite wood Yeah, I think it's great.
Thanks, Heather. There other thoughts? Mike?
I would agree with Heather. The only issue raised by the staff, of course, was if this lighting feature in the ceiling of that entry feature is potentially in conflict with the design preference 7.2.2, where it says preference lighting of sidewalk surfaces shall be generally discouraged. I think we can approve this and not be in conflict with that guideline because, I'm not really sure this is even the sidewalk. I think of the sidewalk as the public walkway area when you pass a building. To me, this is really a recessed entry. It's more a part of the building itself. It could have a glass curtain wall in front of it. It could be inside the building. So I interpret this as not in conflict with that preference at all. I further appreciate that this is, in any event, a very low level of light and just helps define the entrance to the building.
Thank you, Mike. I agree with the lighting piece in that, given the circumstance of that recessed entry, I think to not have that lit would be a bigger problem. Any other comments from commissioners?
No, all good. I would just support and second what's been discussed already.
Yeah, I would say that the balcony, replacing the heavy solid railings with glass is actually a quite nice improvement on the building, and I think it makes it read more as a contextual building in this district with a more clearly defined base, middle, and top. So I really appreciate that change. If there are no other comments, would someone like to offer a motion?
Sure. Jane, I'll do it. I move to approve application number 2022-COA-144 for the building modifications at 1755 Blake Street as per the design guidelines for Lower Downtown Historic District Policy 3.1, 3.3, 6.2, 7.2, and guidelines 5.3.1, 5.3.3, 6.2.1, 6.2.2, 7.2.1, 7.2.2, the design guidelines for Lower Downtown Streetscape relating to sidewalk material, character defining features for the Lower Downtown Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff reports.
I'll second.
Thank you. So thank you, Heather, for the motion, and Fred for the second. Unless there are any amendments or clarifications, we'll move to a roll call vote. As always, we will start with Tom.
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Andy?
Aye.
Fred?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Heather?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
And Jane is also an aye. So the motion passes unanimously, and thank you once again to the applicant and staff for providing the information. So that concludes our design review agenda. We do not have any we do not have any business items on our agenda, but we do have one discussion item that Jen, you had included about our meeting schedule or meetings.
Yep. I'll back up. I had a conversation with the Landmark Preservation Commission on Tuesday at their meeting, and it was Andrew and Heidi were trying to have a conversation with planning board yesterday, and the meeting went very late. And so they didn't get a chance to discuss it, but wanted to make sure I had a chance to discuss this with you guys as well this week, so that there was no disjointedness. Wanted to talk with you all about the potential for going back in person and what that could look like. or and what your thoughts are on that. So excuse me. We have the option for remaining fully virtual. I know that there have been commissioners who would prefer to be in person or have expressed that in the past, maybe not now, but expressed it in the past. There are we could go entirely in person, which would mean that members of the public would have to come in to the web building to testify or to present their project, kind of like the pre-pandemic times where we were all in person. Or we could do a hybrid situation, which staff feels has a stronger equity focus, in which members of the public, applicants and members of the public would be able to join virtually. They would not have to come in. They could if they wanted to, but they would not have to come in. They could join the meeting from their computer or tablet or phone and follow along at home or wherever they are. If we were to go this hybrid route, it is much more complicated of a meeting for staff to put on. And I wanted to share what that could look like before I ask you guys what your thoughts are on the three options of fully virtual, fully in person, or hybrid. So if we were to do a hybrid situation, we would not be able to have commissioners attend virtually as well. All commissioners who are attending the meeting would need to attend in person, as well as staff. And that is because of the technology confusion of having multiple options. We want to make sure the commission are all in the same room. And so if people are sick or if they're on vacation or something, we would have them just not join that meeting. Simply, it would not be required to join in from virtual setting. Same thing with staff. We could set up the room. This is we have the Landmark Preservation Commission room, which is the full size of this one giant conference room. We used to have it so that it was split off in half for the Lower Downtown Design Review Commission meetings, but we would just set it up so that it was the full big meeting room for Lower Downtown Design Review Commissions if we would do in person or hybrid. There would be a U-shaped table. And we would not have commissioners like we did during the shutdown period of have a laptop or a tablet in front of them projecting their face. It would be a webcam in the room, kind of like our applicants had today, where it would be a view of the room, but would not focus on the commissioners' faces, would not focus on staff faces. The technology services set up the room with this Polycom and video camera so that it would work on Teams, but not on Zoom. And so in order for us to make it work on Zoom, which we think is a more equitable approach because more people have access to Zoom than they do have Teams, we would dial into the Polycom from the meeting. So the audio would be via the kind of a phone setup, but it's a really strong, high quality audio, unlike the previous situation during when we were doing hybrid meetings. This would be a very good, high quality sound, very similar to what we are hearing today. The video is through a little webcam that's attached by a USB port, so it's fairly low tech, and it's not the strongest video. It can pick up that people will be able to recognize you all, but you wouldn't be able to recognize you all as well as, for example, I can see you now. The good thing about the audio is that because it is a really strong audio bar, from the very back of the room, you got the members of the public who are attending virtually can hear the people at the very back of the room. They can hear the people at the front. There is really good sound definition on this audio bar. So that's fantastic. We would set up the room in a U shape. It used to be a similar situation for LDDRC and LPC back when we were in person, but instead of having it would basically be reversed. So instead of having the chair and staff at the front of the table, it would be at the back of the table so that the members of the public could actually see the folks who are there. Otherwise, they would have their back to the webcam. I have a couple more notes. Staff would cycle in and out during the meeting because there's a limited space that the webcam can pick up for the number of staff. So we would have people come in for their items and cycle in and out, but staff wouldn't be there for the entire meeting, other than probably me and Emily. Commissioners would not be required to bring to have a laptop or a tablet for video and audio purposes, but if commissioners wanted to review drawings during the meeting, you would need to bring in your own device. We had a bunch of devices that we used in spring and summer of 2020. Those were tablets, they were Surfaces, Microsoft Surfaces, and the city discontinued using those, and so they didn't support updating them and fixing them. And in that period, they have all died, so we don't have any more. But we knew that was coming. We were just kind of trying to like eke it along, and it's been almost 2 years, so that was a good run. The other thing is to let you know about, so the commissioners would sit around several tables, similar to how you guys used to sit around several tables. It would not be, we would not have room for social distancing based on the camera setup. So it would be 2 people per table. We would not require masks, though you would be welcome to wear a mask if you felt like you wanted to. It would not be required, not enforced, because it's not enforceable by the city right now. But if that were to change and there were a mask mandate, then we would be enforcing that. Let me figure out what else there is to tell you. Soundbar is great. People in the room. Okay, so the people, unlike our old setup where we had an LCD projector and a flat screen that projected the presentation, we actually have a giant television in the room. And so members of the public would see you guys in the room and staff in the room, and you guys would see basically your Zoom screen that you're seeing now. So it would be very similar of an experience for the public in terms of what they see, which would be some faces and, or not faces, the conference room and the presentation screen. The big problem is that because when we have the presentation screen up, the PowerPoint up, your faces they're the video showing whoever's attending is very little. And so we will have to go back and forth. So when you're in deliberation, we'll have to remove the PowerPoint. And then when you're back, when there's a presentation being made, we'll put it back up, and we'll have to do a lot of spotlighting and kind of videography, so to speak, to make sure that members of the public can actually see you guys deliberating. I'm almost done, friend. And then we'll jump in. So I think that's largely it. If we were to do this virtual hybrid in-person situation, we would probably aim to start in June at the earliest. I don't think we'd be able to pull it off to start in May. I have some pictures that I took when we were doing a staff test run of Heidi and I were in person, and Andrew from Planning Board and Emily were virtual, testing out to see what it looks like as a panelist, as an applicant from a virtual setting. So that was Andrew, and then Emily was a member of the public to attend as an attendee, and so we could kind of see what it looked like. And I'm happy to pull those up to share my screen of what that looks like for you guys, because I think it's actually, they're not the best photos because I didn't tell Heidi that I was taking them, so she's kind of have mid-talk, mid-speaking mode, but let me just share those real fast so you can see what it looks like. So I've got 3 images here. Poor Heidi's in the mid-sentence, but here's the room. We used to have LDDRC back here in the backside, but we would open it all up. We would set it up so that it looks nicer than it does. We were just doing a test run. But we have a U-shaped table. The chair would sit here, and you guys, the rest of you all would sit around that. We have another small table over here that would be for staff and the attorney, whichever staff member is presenting the project. So that's a view from the room. The webcam is behind me taking this picture. here is the webcam and the big screen. So this is what it looks like from members of the public. And this is what you guys would see, is you would see the room spotlighted during deliberation. As I said, Andrew was a member of the presenter. So you can kind of see him little, but we could spotlight people like I did today with the that conference room that the applicants were in. Emily was a member of the public attending, so you could kind of see that she was there, but we couldn't see her face because she's a member of the public. And then this is me taking a picture of my laptop. So there I am taking a picture of my laptop. And this is what me as an attendee, a member of the public, sees. So I was not seeing Andrew, I was not seeing Emily. I was just seeing the conference room because that's what was spotlighted on the video. So, and staff would be over here, and the member of the public who would, if anyone wanted to come and testify or present, would sit back here. So you can still see them from the public. The resolution's not fantastic. And I'll stop sharing. Fred, you had your hand up.
Thanks. I appreciate all the work that you guys have done on this. But I have to say, you know, as I contemplate it, I don't see a lot of advantages to going back in person, in either exclusively or in a hybrid model. You know, the big advantage is the ability to touch and fondle the material samples. It occurs to me that now that the web building is reopened, that we could perhaps make them available for commissioners the week prior to come and see at their leisure. And though it's nice to see everybody in person, I think that COVID is still with us. I think we run risks of exposure. I think we run risks because I would hope that if somebody was positive, they would not attend. So I think we run a risk of finding that we have a quorum issue and finding that we have to cancel meetings because of that. One of the other things that I like about remote is that we've eliminated a hell of a lot of paper. You know, from a sustainability standpoint, we had applicants producing, was it 10 or 12?
Yeah, we're not going back to that anyway.
And frankly, I find it hard to look at drawings on a laptop. They're not terribly large, so I find it very helpful. While I'm sitting in my own situation, I can blow up drawings, look at drawings, and explore that without having a big print in front of me. So, you know, as much as I like seeing everybody, and maybe we can, now that summer's coming, have just another social gathering or something. I'm all in favor of continuing the remote, and I think the equity thing, the less of an issue with this body, with this commission. I think that we've seen very clearly with participation across the board that having a remote option for participation is a big one for the public. And so just from sort of a policy principle standpoint, I think we need to continue that as well. So thanks.
Can I speak, please? Yes.
Yes, go Steve.
I want to support what Fred just said. And I'd like to add one other thought. And this comes from a person who works in his office pretty much, you know, has been all along. And it's kind of surprising me that I feel this way, but I want to share it. My feeling is we have proven that this has been effective remotely for the last 2 years. And had I not had that experience, I wouldn't be saying that I support remaining remote. I also think it's more efficient. And as Fred said, I think we can be looking at multiple screens at once. And if we have the need to dig in, we can. And I feel like I've never been at a loss for the information that I needed. So, and with that, I'm sorry I need to leave, but my vote is to remain remote. Thank you.
I'd like to add to Steve's note that Fred, that was very observant of you, all those aspects of remote. But myself, I leave it up to the staff to make the best decisions, particularly on technology. I don't know that I want to comment on that, and I will remain flexible. But I would tend to think that the remote works well for me.
Go ahead.
I'll have to step in if I might and agree totally. And believe it or not, it's not because I live in Lodo. It's because that's a reason that I would actually vote more for having something in person, except right now, because of the stroke, I'm confined to a chair, and that makes it easier to be in remote. I use basically all three of the big remote systems, WebEx, Zoom, and then the third one, which I can't remember right now. But anyway, those, I know you've tried all three of them, and I know all of them have different problems, different set, but I'm pretty well proficient in most of them, and except when they change their operating scheme. But I would say that I much prefer Zoom, and I think they've done more to advance the state of the art than the other two big ones have. It's a very easy, very friendly platform to use. And again, for groups that are, or people that want to comment, I think it would be easier for them to comment via Zoom than either the other two. Just my own preference there. Thank you.
Jen, were you calling on me? Yeah, you're muted. Or we can't hear you.
Am I talking over someone? Number one, it's great for the public to be able to do this remotely. That's a big improvement. I think we were kind of closing out public participation just because of the hassle. I'm totally fine with continuing fully remote. I do think we are going to need to rely on staff on some of the materials questions, sort of like what came up today, for them to say, oh, this is material that we routinely approve or something like that, or rely on staff in those regards. I do agree with, I think what Fred said, that if we have controversial materials, or if materials are important, or if we have a model, that it should be made available prior to the meeting so that people can go take a look at it. That's probably not routinely required, but again, that might be a staff call to say, we've requested that the tenant provide a material board that's available in our offices, that kind of thing. And I have 3% battery left, so I may be dropping off here accidentally in just a second, but those are my thoughts. Thank you.
I don't know if Jen's sound is working, but we are back in the office, and we do have materials in the office, and you can set up appointments to come see materials, because we do realize that that's an issue. So we're happy to accommodate that. It's not been requested previously, so we're happy to do that and provide that for you guys.
Yep. And can you guys hear me? Is that working? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I don't know what's going on with my audio. I'll restart my computer after this. Yeah, we just started back in the office this week, 2 days a week, and we're kind of all staggered. So there's definitely many opportunities for people to come in, as long as we know that there's advance notice. The other thing is that, as Fred said, the virus isn't over, and it will shift, and there will be changes. So even if we were to do an in-person or a hybrid, it would have to be flexible, that there may be other periods where we have to go fully remote anyway. So anyway, just putting that out there. And Andy, you have your hand up.
Yeah, and I know I'm not going to have a popular opinion, but I just wanted to throw it out there is, and Jen, you're right. The virus is changing, it's mutating. We're going to have an abundance of caution, and saying we're going to start in June may mean starting later in the year. So I just think we have to be ready for it. We have to understand that, like, if someone tests positive, be kind, don't come in. That said, my concern is the Zoom and the WebEx and all those meetings they worked great during the pandemic, but since we're a quasi-judicial body, and the decisions we make have repercussions on people's properties and time and cost, I feel like, especially with everything that's going on in Douglas County and their sunshine laws getting screwed up, I feel like transitioning back into in-person meetings will be important, at least for these types of bodies that are making decisions on, they have bigger implications than just a smaller board. We're an actual commission. And I think that we need to start weighing the needs of ease versus the, what's the term I'm looking for? The way the public sees it. And I think that's going to be an important too. And I think if I know LPC has a lot more contentious products than LDDRC, but I feel like some people are going to link the two together. And I think that whatever LPC does, I think LDDRC needs to kind of do it in tandem. So I don't want to be like, it's kind of wait and see, but my thought is at some point, probably later in the year, we should start transitioning back to a hybrid model. And I know it means us having to get out of bed and put on real clothes, but I think we may have to transition back to in-person meetings at some point later this year.
Real fast of a spoiler that I thought LPC was really pushing last summer and fall to go back in person because they kept saying, oh, you know, we really miss seeing each other. We miss the personal interaction of reading each other's facial expressions and really understanding what during deliberation, what people were going, how people were going with things. And then when I brought this up to them on Tuesday, they unanimously were like, nope, virtual only. So, you know, there's that. Fred was next, then Heather and John.
Thanks. Two things. One is I just want to respond to what Andy said just now. I mean, I think in terms of the spirit of the sunshine laws, we almost, with a well thought out virtual access, the way you guys have set it up, I almost feel like we're more in compliance than an in-person meeting that requires somebody to go to the web building, go through security, which frankly can be intimidating for some people. You know, just again, not necessarily that architects are going to have that, but as we talk about access for the public, I do feel like this, you know, this provides a lot of that. I did want to say on materials, one suggestion I would make is that just as we get supplemental emails sometimes with, here's an additional letter that came in or something, I think highlighting if there are materials that are particularly relevant to the discussion, a separate email to the commission just saying, here are the materials that will be reviewed. It's particularly important. There could be a quick photo of it just so we have an idea what's there. And perhaps even just saying when staff will be in the office, that we could come and see it, something like that, what office hours are. So we can just kind of make sure that we don't put that off and think the night before, oh shit, I should have gone in to look at that. Thanks.
Hi, next.
Yeah.
The thing that I just kind of want to point out, I think kind of Jen, your presentation on setting up a meeting that is hybrid feels like it's kind of particularly onerous for staff and is creating a bit of extra work that I don't know that there's a whole lot of benefit to having staff do that extra work to have a hybrid meeting. I'm wondering if maybe and I'm personally kind of indifferent as to whether we're 100% back in person or 100% remote. But I think there have been really great points made about, you know, equity for the public and things like that for staying remote. I'm wondering if maybe one of the solutions is, you know, staff, you guys understand and know when projects are coming forward to us. And I think that there are times and there are certain projects that we get where it definitely is beneficial to be in the same room. So we're talking about, like, you know, if there's a big infill project and the applicant has materials and models and there's a lot of things that we would want to look at and discuss in person. I think just given our district that those projects are going to be fairly limited. And we've seen kind of recently that most of our projects are small things like signs or alterations and things like that. And so I think maybe it's one of those things where maybe the solution is to say, okay, we're going to be primarily virtual. And then as what, you know, if we get an infill project or we get in something large, it's going to have a lot of models or it's going to have a lot of things that may necessitate an in-person meeting, that's just something that can go out ahead of time from staff and say, you know, let's take a poll. We think that maybe we should be in person for this session. How does everybody feel about that? And do it on more of a case-by-case basis as it's really determined to be more necessary.
That could be a little dangerous though, if we're deciding who has to show up in person and who gets to be remote. I don't know if there's a contentious project, somebody might say you're being unfair, that you're requiring us to come in. You didn't require them to come in.
And maybe that would go more to a hybrid instead of a fully in person, because it sounds like if I was recalling what Jen said initially, that if it was hybrid, the commission would be in person, staff would be in person, and then the applicant and or public could still join remotely. So I would think that in a case like I just laid out, where we have models and a lot of things like that, that the applicant would be in person for that. But again, set it up rather than a full in person, but a hybrid on certain situations where it's valuable.
It would be more of an applicant request than a decision from our side as well. If they feel that they're bringing in a lot that needs to be explored in person, maybe we let that request come from them and then try to schedule a hybrid as opposed to a virtual if they feel it's necessary for them to get a fair hearing.
Your sound's not working again, but John.
Yeah, I'd agree on the sort of, you know, if there is a larger project and we need to be together with physical stuff, then it makes sense to kind of collect together. But otherwise, fully virtual seems to be working well. I do think maybe as almost came up today, that maybe that the other angle in terms of previews of materials too is it may be that there's some things that are conditional on review of physical materials if we can't get to that in a setting like this. And maybe there's if it has to be that way, I think it'd be a lot better to preview if we could, obviously. And then maybe the third quick point is, you know, as an applicant into processes like this, personally, particularly with the type of things that at least we've been doing since I've been sitting on the board, I think the virtual process is much more efficient and effective for the applicant as well. The idea of having to physically come in and sit for a period of time waiting for your moment to come, then get there, and the balance of actually being able to continue to do some other things in the background while you wait for your presentation, I think is a much more sort of successful and efficient and effective process for applicants too, particularly in the type of stuff that at least we've been doing since I've been sitting here. Maybe that's not the case on the bigger stuff, but I could see, and I'd be interested in some applicant feedback. But I think for us, it's been a real benefit to be able to just sort of be present when we need to be present and be doing other things when we need to be doing other things.
Sound working yet? No. Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. I really apologize. We haven't necessarily heard from applicants for LDDRC that they prefer virtual versus in person. We haven't really had a lot of feedback there. But for LPC, we definitely have heard from applicants that they greatly prefer being virtual because for that reason, that they can have their videos off, their sounds off. As attendees, they can be doing their work and then they jump in when it's their item. And we've heard from people who can attend meetings, council members, aides can attend the meeting and just have it running in the background while they're doing work, that kind of thing. So that's a good thing. I will say that LPC does review a lot of infill projects, not necessarily to the scale that you guys review when you do have infill in Lodo, but they review a lot of infill projects and have over the past 2 years and have not really had a lot of challenges other than materials when reviewing them virtually.
You guys get more models, I would say. The issue there is though that we often don't see those models until the day of the actual meeting. We usually do get materials previously, and Nate wanted to Nate from Oz Architecture applicant today, wanted to do full boards and everything. And I'm like, I don't really know how to handle that because we're all virtual. If you want to go to town, but like I left it up to him. So yeah, that's kind of just my thoughts as staff to both LPC and LDDRC.
This is super helpful. Thank you all for feedback and thoughts. I wanted, it's been a while since we had conversations about what this could look like. So that's why I really wanted to bring it up to you all and hear what you had to say, because what I totally did not expect LPC to say they wanted to be entirely virtual. And so they prepared me for you guys saying a similar thing. But I agree that I think commissions need to be on the same board because people will confuse LPC and LDDRC, and why is one doing one and another doing the other? So
Jen, I just also wanted to throw in, because you mentioned we hadn't heard from applicants, and I have that they also do prefer virtual because it's just easier for them to attend and then get on with other work of their day. So
you don't have to pay for parking and all that. Okay, great. Well, that was it for me for the discussion item, Jane. Oh, wait, I lied. One more thing. Every May, you guys are supposed to do your elections for chair and vice chair. So just wanted to put that in a little reminder to you all that that's coming up. And if we have no applicants in May, we still have to have a meeting because your bylaws say you have to have an election. So there's that.
Shortest
May is
meeting ever.
Preservation Month, so it'll be a way to celebrate.
There's no applicants. That might be the shortest meeting ever. But
sorry, I cut you off, Heather.
It's okay.
I wonder if that might be an interesting opportunity if there is no applicants, just to do a little in-person thing for ourselves in terms of that process. If it, particularly if there's no applicants. But anyway, being the newbie to the project and not having done an in-person one yet.
It's so delightful. But as a reminder, we do, for those of you who would drive into the web building, we do reimburse for parking during commission activities. So if you're coming in for a meeting, a commission meeting, we reimburse for parking as long as you guys have receipts.
Nate has his hand up.
Oh, I didn't see that. Sorry, Nate.
That's okay. I just raised it. So there was mention of the sunshine law for the state of Colorado, but the city, just to be clear, we have our own open meetings law. We're home rule. And so our law requires meetings to be conducted in person, at least for the boards and commissions and all of the other groups that fall under our open meetings law. And of course, LDDRC is one of those commissions. So the only time that we can be fully virtual is during an emergency that has to be declared by the mayor. So I just wanted to make that point clear because at some point coming up soon, we are not going to have this option to be virtual like we are right now.
Is council looking to change that at all, or is that on anybody's agenda with council?
This, what I'm talking about right now is the updated law, because previously, as you recall, we weren't allowed to be 100% virtual, and we had to have sort of that hybrid version just for boards and commissions, where some of the board or the commission was present, and a certain percentage of us were remote. But the law, as it is updated, allows that sort of thing, but only in an emergency that's been declared by the mayor. Any other questions?
No, thanks. Just a big shout out and thanks to staff for preparing all of that and reviewing, doing the practice trial run and helping to figure out what's what is involved so that if we do go back to a hybrid, it's there. You guys do an awful lot. Thank you.
I'm going to say Heidi is a superstar. As we all know, those who know Heidi know that she's amazing. So she's the one who's making sure we're getting our acts together.
I actually think for this commission, Tom and Andy haven't been in person either. So,
Tom has.
Yeah,
when we were
Tom
doing
has,
the
yeah.
hybrid.
Yeah. Anyway. All right.
I think I need to officially adjourn the meeting.
Yeah.
So meeting adjourned, and thanks everybody. Good to see
Thank
everybody.
you all. Appreciate it.
Bye, thank you.